All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Lovecraft Easing podcast. I'm Mike Davis. I'm here with Damian McCarthy. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. As we just discussed before we were recording, it's you're in Ireland and it's 6 o'clock right there.
Yeah.
6 o'clock p.m. there, and it's noon here. So
Mm.
yeah.
Right.
So yeah. If I did this on Sundays at my normal time, it'd be midnight for you. It'd be a little late.
Oh yeah, a little bit. And the Sunday could be after a beer or two. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that might be a better interview. You never know. All right, man. Thanks for agreeing to do the interview. Your film Oddity just came out, what, 2 weeks ago? Is that about right?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, theatrically in the US, and I think it's nearing its run now. It was a very limited, short run, but I think we're coming close to the end of it now, from what I'm reading.
Yeah. Um, well, it wasn't showing. I live in kind of a medium-sized town, but it wasn't showing in my town,
Hmm.
and so it was a nice little thing to do with my son on Monday, 2 days ago, and we went to see it about 45 minutes away, and I got to tell you, man, it was worth the drive.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and even my son, he's 22 now, but he always does this thing in horror movies like, it wasn't scary. I never jump or anything like
Uh-huh.
that. He jumped at least 3 times
Oh,
during the movie,
fantastic.
so that's like the ultimate compliment right there.
Great.
The big,
Excellent.
yeah, big tough 22-year-old.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I did too, actually. And but the thing about it is, you know what? It's all right with you. I'd like to talk about the film
Hmm.
for a few minutes in your career, questions like that. And then I'd like to maybe discuss the film with spoilers, but at a clear point for anyone who hasn't watched
Okay.
it yet. They
Yeah,
can they can jump off the interview at that point and come back later.
great.
Um, as for me, I my son's name is Logan. Logan goes, "Okay, so Dad, what's the film about?" I'm like, "I don't know." And he goes, "What? You're gonna go see a film you don't even know what it's about?" I'm like, "Logan, I'm 90% sure that this is going to be a great film. And my thing is always, I said this on my show so many times that people are probably sick of it, but too many um, horror trailers give too much away.
Yeah.
And if I know a film is going to be good, or at least I'm pretty sure, I just
Hmm.
go into it blind.
Yeah.
Like back in the old days in the 70s, when Alien was just this little um, advertisement in a newspaper. You're like, okay, that looks cool. I don't know what it's about or anything, but I'm gonna go. You know,
Yeah, but even the Alien trailer is probably the best example of that. I still go back and watch that trailer just randomly from time to time. That it doesn't give anything away. It's just
yeah,
so cryptic and it's creepy and yeah, yeah, it's something we tried to do with the trailer was just when I first looked at it was like, let's pull that out. Let's pull that out. Let's get rid of that. I think with the trailer, what I was trying to do was I was saying like, let's focus more on the actors looking scared, like looking
mhm,
terrified, reacting to stuff, but don't give anything away what they're reacting to because it'll make the audience want to say, well, geez, like they look so frightened. I wonder what's I gotta go see it because I don't know what scared them. I think that's why
yeah.
Long Legs was so popular as well. But I haven't seen the film yet, but I know that the marketing for that has been amazing because it doesn't give anything away and it looks very unsettling and creepy, you know?
I think that maybe horror film folks are starting to learn that lesson
Yeah.
because I watched the uh, trailer for Oddity
Hmm.
after I watched the film.
Ah,
And I thought, yeah, that would have been just fine. It didn't really give anything away at all. What it did was make you want to watch the film,
hmm.
which is what a trailer's supposed to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, kudos on that. I remember a movie called um oh shoot, I don't remember. It's a movie with Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer. It's a ghost story.
Oh yeah. What lies beneath? Yeah.
What Lies Beneath. Thank you. And luckily, I saw this trailer afterwards. This is like 20 years ago when it came out.
Hmm.
But it gives the most important one of the trailers gives the most important plot point away.
Really?
So,
Did they
oh
give it
yeah,
away? Oh.
yeah. So,
I thought it was a new thing that was happening. Okay, even back then, right?
oh yeah, well, yeah, I don't know, but
Hmm. Yeah, I guess it's just this. Even when we were in film school, we were told in editing class, it was like when we were cutting trailers, like put everything into the trailer because you're trying to get people to come see your film. So show them the cool stuff. It doesn't matter, like because they're seeing it out of context. And I always disagreed. I always said no, but you're people will remember this. I know myself that like not that I have a great memory on it or anything, but I would for film trailers. And if I see something that's in the trailer. I'll know that's a spoiler. Think of Red Dragon, where um, the killer was found with Edward Norton's character with his son, and I still
yes,
hadn't seen that moment in the film. And it was this creepy line where he says, "Oh, I'm a friend of your mom's" or something like this. And there's a point in the movie where you think he's dead, but I knew it was like he's not dead because that line has yet to come, and then sure enough, it's there. So
right.
just little things like that can be. I think people do remember him, and they can spoil a film a little bit.
I won't say the title of the film, but a horror film, and I'm particular. I think there's a lot of bad horror films, but there's some really really good ones too, like Oddity, Long Legs, Caveat. The There's a twist with the main character, but if you've watched the trailer, essentially the first 25 minutes of the movie are wasted because you already know that this character is not who they pretend to be,
All right.
you know.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very well done trailer. And I also want to talk about I thought while watching the film, if I was watching at home, I'd be like writing notes and everything, but I'm like, I'm in the movie theater. I can't be like one
No.
of those kids and open up my phone and take notes because that's exactly what I hate in movie theaters. But one of the things I remember is that the characters don't act like your typical idiots in a horror movie,
Hmm.
which I really liked. And I'll discuss that more when we go to the spoiler part.
Right.
But yeah, I really liked that. And they're smart characters. They're reacting. How would you react if this really happened? What would you
Hmm.
do?
Yeah. It's a fine line though, because writing it, I sometimes think that that every good horror film needs a character that are making bad decisions. You want them to do things that aren't very smart. You kind of want them to, okay, there's a noise in the basement. You want them to go check it. You don't want them to get into their car and leave. So there's a little bit of a fine line between
Mm,
having characters that are slightly smarter and doing things that the audience aren't going to roll their eyes at. But then at the same time, it is a horror film and you're trying to make it entertaining and scary. So you do kind of want your characters to do, slightly dumb things. And there's a few of those in Oddity too, but yeah, hopefully that they're slightly more, slightly, a little bit more clever than the normal psycho fodder that you'd have in films.
well, and I think this is out there. So slight spoiler, but this is already out there in the trailer as well, and in some reviews of the film. Near the beginning of the movie,
Hmm.
the one of the protagonists is given a really impossible choice.
Hmm.
This crazy looking guy is knocking on her door, and your first reaction as a film viewer is like, yeah, we're not gonna let this guy in, right?
Hmm.
And it took me completely by surprise since I hadn't watched the trailer. He says there's somebody in the house. They went in the house while you went to get something from your car. And I found myself thinking, oh, I'm a smart guy. What would I do in this situation? It, I don't know. It's especially a woman.
Hmm.
Women are, typically more preyed on than men. Obviously, what would you do? I don't know what
Yeah.
I would do.
Yeah. And that's the hook. That's what you're trying to put them into a situation where it's like, well, this is lose lose. There's
Yeah.
no, and I think it was just an interesting place to start the film and just try to put the characters into a situation where there is kind of no way out of it. It was a little bit like with Caveat too, my first film. It was okay. He can go to this house, this haunted house, and look after this girl for a week. But I just kept trying to put more and more things into the film that, well, this is a reason where he has to stay. It's on an island, he can't swim. And then when he gets there, there's the whole ridiculous idea that, well, we need to chain you to the house to make the girl feel more relaxed, and just keep piling these things on until, yeah, this guy's really going nowhere. And there's a little bit of that in Oddity too. There's. there's nowhere for her to go.
Yeah.
It's a bad situation.
I heard that for when Dennis Lehane was writing the movie, or writing the book Shutter Island, which was obviously turned into a movie later. He was writing it set in the present, and they decided that's not going to work. Cell phones, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Even though they're on that island, they can call in the
Hmm.
cavalry.
Hmm.
Oddity is set in the present. There are cell phones in the movie,
Hmm.
and I thought the way that the characters did not have access to their cell phones at some point was very realistic.
Hmm.
You know, um, so I just wanted a kudos for that because setting it with cell phones, even though the house is up in the middle of nowhere, so it might as well be on an island, right?
Hmm.
Um, but she can't call for help, and there's a very good reason why she can't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's funny because I have this thing where I try not to worry too much about whether the cell phone is working on. I mean, everybody has seen that shot in that movie where they hold up. I've no signal. Now we're in
right,
trouble. I've just kind
that's
of stuck.
lame.
And with Oddity, I actually tried right up to the last few drafts of the script. I kept trying to write out cell phones. I kept saying, "Is there another way that I can
Really,
just not have them in it?" Because everything else in the film is a little bit like Darcy's Antique Shop. It's kind of a mishmash of different periods and times, and it's like even when we showed it at South by Southwest, and some of the audience were saying, "When is this set?" There's a very strange feeling to the film. They can't get a handle on what year is this? And they said the only thing that's really a giveaway is the cell phone. And I was like, going, damn it, I wish I'd worked harder to figure out a way to get phones out of the film. I almost think it would have made it a little bit creepier. But I appreciate that. I'm glad that it still worked, even the fact that they're in it.
it did. There's a very good reason why Yana can't access her cell phone, which
Hmm.
we'll talk about in a few minutes. Have you seen It Follows? You probably have.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. It's one of my favorite horror films. If you rewatch that film, and maybe you've already thought about this, Damien, it's very hard to tell when it's set
Yeah.
because there's some weird things going on, and then there's some things going on the TV that obviously happened years ago.
Hmm.
And one of the characters that she has this weird looking Kindle that's round and pink, you
Yeah.
know, and none of the characters have cell phones.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
great.
it's
Yeah.
it's weird. It makes you think, what?
Yeah. Just don't waste any time in it. Don't get so hung up on you'll just accept, okay, these characters just don't have phones. They don't have technology.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
totally. That's probably why one of the reasons I really love that film so on some unconscious level.
I hope the sequel holds up.
Me too. Yeah,
So,
promising.
um, tell me about Carolyn Bracken and how
Hmm.
you discovered her because she plays both sisters in this film, and I did an about face uh, because she looks so different and acts so different.
Yeah.
One sister as opposed to the other. And
Hmm.
she's got some serious acting chops.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We're very lucky to get Carolyn. So Carolyn had starred in a Irish horror movie called "You Are Not My Mother," and I really like the movie. It's very physical. It's kind of a body horror movie. She undergoes this transformation, and it's just what she does with her body is very interesting. It's a little bit like that movie Possession. There's a kind of a very contorted kind of scenes in it, and um, and the producers had worked with her before, and I met her, and she'd read the script, and we just she just had a great take on the character. I think my initial idea for it was that it was going to be much more kind of like I'm from the southwest of Ireland, and around the town sometimes there's kind of it's very relaxed. It's very, and sometimes there's kind of a little bit of a hippie culture there. And that's kind of how I always imagined her, kind of this much more laid back kind of medium, a little bit more of a psychic. And just the more I talked to Carolyn, it became what it became. It became, well, you do that for one sister, but then the other sister's much more uptight. She's obviously, she's been through a lot more challenges in her life. And also the fact that she could potentially be a threat. Like when she arrives at the house, and it's only 20 minutes in or whatever, whenever she shows up to the house uninvited, and um just shows up with this couple. You don't know where this is going. Is she the threat? Have we just met the villain of the film? Is she here for some, for revenge or whatever wherever this mystery is going to lead us? And I like that, that it was kind of, you didn't really know what was going to happen with her. And just her take on the two characters was great. I think even a few days she had to, in the morning she'd be one sister, and then in the evening she'd be the other, and she was able to go back and forth easily. Well, from the outside easily, maybe it was difficult for her.
I know nothing about the world of film except for watching films. Just
Right.
an aside, if she went back and forth on the
Hmm.
same day, how was that a wig that she wore in one? Because
Yeah, it would have.
one sister's got white hair, the other one's got sort of dark blonde or dark long hair.
Yeah, so Carolyn in real life, if you see her, she's this lovely. It's very. I guess it's kind of white or blonde hair. I don't know much about styles.
Right.
It's all natural in her hair, and like it's really cool. So like when we did when she was going to play Danny, then it was just try to get as far away from that as possible. I mean, Carolyn in real life, she wears her hair quite short, so we said, okay, for Danny, her hair will be longer, and then of course costume, like Danny's very much kind of it's all wool and brighter colors, whereas when you look at Darcy, then there's not a hair out of place. She's very neat and tidy. Even when we first meet her, she almost looks like a little ballerina inside a music box when she's sitting inside in her antique shops. That was kind of the idea, just to really differentiate them. But I have seen people say I thought it was two different actors, so it's a great compliment to
Yeah.
Carolyn, and she deserves it. Yeah.
You directed the movie as well as wrote the movie.
Hmm.
What was the genesis of this um, story? How did you come up with this particular story? How did it come about?
So I'd made one feature film before this, which is very difficult, and it's just the nature of your first feature film is always, making films is hard, but it's just when your budget's so low and you've so tight of resources, you've no contacts in the film industry, you're really just coming at this, how do I get into this? So because it took a couple of years to get that film finished and get it out and get people to see it, and I was always working my day job through all this. So when I thought that, okay, I might have a chance to make another film because Caveat was starting to get a little bit of notice, and it got me my agents, and they started introducing to people. I said, okay, but if I only get to make one more film, what would I like to make? And I had a couple of different scripts, but it just seemed like Oddity was one, something that I thought that I could direct with where my skill level was. And two, just because I really liked the story. It had all these things that I just really wanted to see in a film. It had a little bit of a slasher, it's a bit of a mystery, it's a bit of a ghost story.
Hmm.
Um, I knew the location. It was written specifically for this location, which is the same place where I built my sets for Caveat. So it's just a bunch of things lined up that it was like, this seems like the one to this seems like the film to make. So it was just a lot of ideas that I'd had that I just really wanted to see them on screen, and this script seemed like the way to do it.
Um, I read somewhere that your parents had a video shop growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, so you obviously is that where you discovered your love of horror film?
oh yeah, for,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. I mean,
Is that
my dad's a big horror fan and sci-fi fan, and he still is. He's an electrician, and when he was starting out, what you do is usually an electrician or would have like a kind of they'd have a shop where they'd sell, Hoovers and microwaves and this kind of thing in the 80s and 90s. And that would be kind of how you'd get started. You'd be like your like a front for the business in a way, that
right?
like you're
Right.
he'd be all wiring houses and things. So every day after school, yeah, we just walk down and yeah, you're just waiting in the store, waiting around the shelves for my mom to finish work. So we go home. So yeah, you're just spending your evenings inside there a lot of the time, and you're reading the backs of boxes. You're looking at the artwork from the 80s and 90s, that fantastic VHS artwork. And again, it's just it's really sparking off your imagination, and then taking home. Obviously, I was always taking home films, so I'd be rewatching things constantly. It'd be if I fell in love with a film, to be like it was always out for rent because I had it at home, and then just we never
I
had
love
anything.
it.
It was all in my bedroom at home, and then just taking a lot of
Your
movie
parents are
posts.
like, we're trying to make money here, Damien.
Yeah, oh yeah. That was I got in trouble a lot. Yeah, I got a lot of phone calls like saying, "Do you have RoboCop? It's been out for a month. Where is it?" Um,
We're gonna
so
start charging you, Damien.
yeah, but it was lucky because somebody else they'd like maybe they'd get to rent Alien. I mean, this is think of like late 80s, kind of early 90s, when now everything is so accessible and people just have
Yeah,
a copy of everything on their phone. They have a copy of movies like so. Um, it's just back then it was lucky that if you'd watch a film you really loved, but then you'd have to bring it back the next day because you get fined or whatever you get
and
what.
rewind.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but for me, I could just I keep it for the week and just watch it again and again and again. And I think, yeah, it really, really, I think that's where it all that that's where it all started.
Your love of horror movies certainly is that where it started? Did you have it in the back of your mind as a kid? Maybe I could do this someday, or did that come later?
I really wanted to, but I really want. I think I would say since I was a child, I just wanted to have something to do with movies. Um, and just because I was so fascinated by them and so terrified by horror films, I just thought about them all the time. So I think it just got all those cogs turning in my head and just trying to make up my own stories. But still, I didn't start. I mean, I'm 43 now, and I kind of feel like my career is only starting now. Whereas, like, I went back as a mature student in my early 20s to film school, and that was just when, it's only 20 years ago, but still, like, it seems like we've always had digital and access to all this technology that's so
Yeah,
easy to make a film and share a film and educate yourself with video essays online that teach about filmmaking and all this kind of stuff. But back then there was nothing. I mean, you had to get a book, and and even in that filmmaking book, there might be only a handful of success stories, like guys like Kevin Smith or Christopher Nolan or Robert Rodriguez that shot on 16 mil film. There was no digital, so that's where I started. So it did feel it was like, oh, this is going to be really tricky to get into this. But thankfully, you know, digital did come along and
yeah,
and and it just made it accessible for everybody to make a film, But obviously you still have to figure out how to come up with these ideas and learn how to write and structure a script and all these kind of
yeah.
things.
I was gonna add to that that just because a lot more people have access and can
Mm,
theoretically make a film or create a horror film
mm.
doesn't mean that it's going to be good. There's that,
Oh,
that there's more out there, but you have to find those diamonds in the rough.
I know.
Yeah,
But luckily, I just think, and myself, I'm the same. I mean, like I'll hear if a completely no budget movie is made, if it's released next week, word of mouth will get it out. I mean, like
yeah,
horror fans are so passionate that like me and my friends will say, or my brother, like I say, oh, I've heard about this film, and it could be some real obscure low budget thing, but sure, soon enough, everybody is talking about it.
yeah,
Um, I've been very lucky with that with Oddity. I mean, Oddity wasn't a big budget movie by any means, but I'm very grateful that people have found it and that it's like it was never meant to have a theatrical release. It was just because it did so well at film festivals with crowds. I think
really, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
I think that was always the plan, yeah, that it was just going to be it was made for Shudder, made for the Shudder audience, which is I'm a fan of Shudder myself, obviously, and but I think it's just when they kind of saw that, well, it's quite popular it's a fun film in the theater. It's a fun film to watch with a crowd, which was really, really evident when we went to see it at South by Southwest or any of the festivals I've been to watch it has been, oh, this is a really fun movie to watch with an audience, which was a little bit of a surprise to me and my editor when we first sat down with a crowd because we were going, wow, this is playing a lot louder than the crowd are a lot more responsive to this than we thought they would be. But just on that point of if you make a film that it still has to be found. I mean, that's the thing. You just do your best to make a good film, and then just hopefully people will find it. But you could say the same thing about a film with 100 million budget, some
Yeah,
huge big blockbuster. I mean, those things bomb as well. I mean, sometimes people just don't go to see those either.
well, if it's not good, if word of mouth works both
Word of
ways.
mouth is everything. Yeah.
Yeah, works both ways, and Oddity has great word of mouth because it is so good.
Mm.
Question for you. Some of my followers have said, I really want to see Oddity, especially since
Mm.
you said you like it so much, Mike, but it's just I can't access it. It's not playing, or it was playing and I just missed it. When will it be out on video or Shutter or wherever? Do you know?
I still don't know, but I know it is soon. So we'll say in 1 month from now, at the end of
Oh, okay. That's
I'm in
not bad.
Ireland. Well, in 1 month from now, it'll be out in Ireland. So people could also come to Ireland and see it. But I think a little bit closer to home, it might. It's pretty soon after that. I think. I know. I think it's within the next 2 months, but I can't be sure.
Well, that's great. That's not
Yeah,
too
I
long
don't
of a
think there's
wait.
going to be a long wait at all, which is good.
Um, there are, to my mind, as I was watching the movie, that there are two types of scares in this movie.
Hmm.
And one of them, of course, is the jump scare, which
Yeah,
I didn't feel like any of them were cheap. I thought they were all earned
good.
jump
Thank you.
scares. But the other one is I don't think I've seen or remember a movie that ratcheted up the suspense and the feeling of dread
Hmm.
so much as Oddity did. Where, the old Hitchcock saying, a bomb under the table and it explodes, that's a surprise. But if you know there's a bomb under the table and it doesn't explode, that's suspense. And you
Yeah.
just kept ratcheting that up. And I'm sure it was deliberate. I don't even know what to ask you about that, but I guess I
Hmm.
would ask you what what is involved in your mind when you're trying to do that on paper and then when it on in the film.
It,
Um,
well,
yeah,
thanks for that. Yeah, I'm glad it worked because you could just do something very cheap, like I don't know, the cat jumps out of the cupboard and scares everybody, or the
right.
suddenly somebody appears behind them, and that's quite cheap. And sometimes you hear like there's a lot of jump scares in the movie, and you go, well, you kind of hope that there's a lot of suspense in the movie, but then with a release, as opposed to just, I always think of a jump scare as just, it's just suddenly there and it's very cheap. Whereas
Right.
I think if it's earned, it's not better. It's really just working to earn it. Sometimes I'll get an idea and I'll be like, well, I know where it ends. I think that would be, that's creepy. That would be a jump scare. But now how do I build up to that? How do I work backwards and how much tension, how long can I stretch this out to get to that point? Whereas if you just had that point, it's cheap.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just work backwards from that and just continue to build tension until a point where it has to be released at some stage. That's usually what's in my mind. Now, sometimes it will be like, well, put them in a situation I'll be writing and I'll find that, well, this is a creepy scenario and you're trying to follow through to where it ends and you'll find a place to finally release it then.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of horror movies have jump scares. A lot of them are not earned. Some of them are earned. Like,
Yeah.
for example, I thought that the jump scares in Smile, when they
Mm.
happened, were earned.
Yeah.
Um, but you could say, a lot of horror movies have jump scares, is what I'm trying to say. What I think your movie does so well is, as I said, drawing out that suspense to it's almost, watching it as
Mm.
a viewer, it's almost unbearable, and you're putting yourself in the position of the characters, and what
Mm.
would you do in this situation,
Yeah.
you know?
It's funny because I made a lot of short films when I was in college and they weren't very good. I could never get them screened at film fest or anything. But I remember I actually just started watching, now that we're talking about jump scares and suspense, I started watching a lot of jump scare videos and real cheap stuff on YouTube that's just, you're following a maze or something, and suddenly there's this,
Right.
Linda Blair from The Exorcist is suddenly there. And I mean it's silly, like it's startling. There's no suspense built. But I started thinking, well, what if you did that? What if you did the cheap scare, but built up to it, but let people know it's coming? And I made this short film called "He Dies at the End," and I think that's really for me that'll always probably be the most important film I'll make because it's 4.5 minutes long. And one, it was the first thing I ever got into a film festival, and it got me some notice, and it gave me a bit of confidence to make more films. But it was just I realized that it's about the suspense. It's not about
Yeah.
that silly. bang at the end. It's like, well, no, we'll get to it. But if you can somehow let people know that it's coming, and especially a horror audience, they know it's coming. I do it myself. If I'm watching something, I'll start going, okay, I'll start covering my eyes, saying, or start, raising my hand, saying, okay, they're going to catch me here now. There's something coming. That's the best part. It's
Yeah.
rarely going to be it's rarely going to be the ending. It's going to be that build-up of tension. That's always
Yeah.
what I'm focused on.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If memory serves, there are even scenes that ratchet up that tension, draws out the suspense. One or two that don't have a release right then.
Yeah. And that's just as important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to release it. I think it was Steven Spielberg talking about Jaws. I know it was on the DVD commentary or just in some random interview I saw with him, but he was talking about that the whole film seemed to be suspense, and then that the first scare, the first release was at the end when is it Brody is throwing the fish guts into the water, and then the shark pops up. And he
Right.
said that's the first time that the audience screamed. But then when they went back, that was like a test audience, but they went back and they put in the severed head that floats up out of the boat. Do you remember when Dreyfuss's character goes down and he goes down to a shipwreck and this severed head floats out? And he
Right.
said there was such a huge scare. I think that's the best scare of the movie, but there's such a huge scare at that. It's such a that's a real jump scare. Like it's so shocking, but it obviously it makes sense in the story. But he talked about how like it was kind of two different films then. He said one was all suspense all the way to the end of the release. And they said, but once they put this scare in the middle, that the audience had kind of lost trust in them then because now it seemed to work for the film as well, but now they were very much on edge because they were just waiting for the next thing to pop up. They were waiting for the next scare.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Um,
both work. Both, you could have that build up the whole way through, or else you can kind of catch them out, but they're going to be so much more on guard then, because if they're thinking, okay, this is a jump scare movie. This is a film that's not afraid to shock us. It's not just about atmosphere and suspense. It's actually there's going to be some startling, the director's trying or the filmmakers are trying to catch us out in this as well. I think it'll put you more on edge. I nearly prefer that kind of movie.
the fear of the unknown too. Um, at some point, you in the movie you realize a bit what's going on, but before that, you're imagining
Mhm.
when the guy's at the front door. I honestly, I didn't know that there was somebody in the house as a viewer, and that fear of the unknown when you don't know what the monster is, or you don't know what the evil is, or the supernatural thing is. That works very well in the
Mm.
film as well.
Yeah.
Um, I want to ask you about the soundtrack too. I
Mm.
thought the soundtrack was extremely effective,
Yeah.
and there were parts in the film that, as good as the film is, they would not have been as suspenseful without that particular. And that,
Oh.
and again, I would have taken notes if I was watching at home, but it seemed like even part of the soundtrack, there were almost screams in it.
Mm.
Just tell me about the soundtrack and who did that for you.
So the score would have been done by Richard Mitchell, and I would have worked with Richard on Caveat as well. Richard's very much, Richard's been in the business a while. He's very experienced, but he's just got a fantastic imagination he's got a great story mind as well. So he's very much about the emotion of the characters and stuff like this. So his his score was great because we seem to just have this kind of sense of doom the whole way through it. That like
Yes.
even from her first when she first realizes that there's more to her sister's death than she thought, it's quite it feels quite heavy and kind of doomed from the start essentially, and then it just continues it, and it's pretty much that it echoes it then when we get to the ending when we finally reach our conclusion. Then working on the sound design was Asa Hand, which is Asa is a fantastic sound designer here in Dublin. And it was very much just trying to make it as strange and as out there as possible. And I was saying to Asa that it doesn't really lend itself to a haunted house movie, unfortunately. I don't think kind of eerie wind and stuff like this blowing through it. But a lot of creaking timber seemed to be a thing that keep coming back. So the idea of that there's somebody walking around the house, or is it
Mm.
the wooden man moving? It was just to kind of continuously have this in the back of your mind. And in the script and in the design of the wooden man, I mean, he's designed to look like he's in a lot of pain and he's always screaming. His face is kind of locked in this torturous scream. That was very much with sound design in mind, because I knew that when we got to the end, and if he did come to life, that you've got somewhere to go now to marry up your sound design and your visual, because you can just do whatever you want with him because of the way he looks. I always think anyway that I don't think any film is scary without the sound design. I've said this so
Yeah,
many times. Like if I'm watching something and I start getting scared, I turn off the sound so I can keep watching the movie, but the sound is gone, so I'm no longer afraid of the film. Whereas I think if you cover your eyes, you can still hear it, and now it's
right.
scarier because you're imagining what you're imagining that was so much worse.
Yeah, it's even worse. Yeah. I forgot to ask, because I haven't seen this yet. He dies at the end. Is that the name of the short film?
He dies at the end. Yeah,
Where can folks watch that?
it's on YouTube. All
Okay,
my
good.
all my old short films are on YouTube, and
Awesome.
the actor in it is a very old friend of mine, and he's worked on all my movies since, not as an actor, but behind the scenes, building sets and props and all this kind of thing.
By the way, I saw in her shop, I saw the caveat rabbit.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
that's one of Lisa Zagon's creations. She's a fantastic artist here in Cork. I just really wanted. I don't have the original bunny anymore from Caveat, but she had made us like a kind of a hair, kind of like a bigger, meaner version of it, kind of thing. And but it's just everything she makes has this wonderful feel to it that yeah, I hope I can put something of hers in every film I make.
Um, Before we go to the spoiler part of this interview, and I'll try not to keep you too long. Um, what are some, excuse me, what are some of the growing up, what are some of your favorite films, horror films growing up
Hmm.
that had a real lasting effect on you? And then what are some recent horror films like the last several years or now that
Hmm.
you really love?
Yeah, I guess growing up it would have been, I suppose it was a mixed bag. I guess it would have been like Alien was always a big one. Child's Play would have had a huge influence. Fright Night, even though when I look at it now, a lot of these films I look back at them now, and I mean Child's Play and Fright Night, I find them quite more comedic than scary. But at the time, yeah, they were definite horror films. Um, Poltergeist movies, all the classics, really, all the 80s. It wasn't until I got into a little bit into my teenage years I started going back and watching things like Don't Look Now and Ringu and all these kind of more, mature
Right.
horror films. But I watched them all. I still go back and watch Child's Play and Fright Night and all these things. And I guess more modern, recent horror films. I mean, I think we're just in the best time for horror films at the moment. There's so much good stuff. Let me see, like Smile, I really did enjoy. Thought that was great.
The trailer for Smile 2 looks pretty good too.
I haven't seen it yet. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And
Uh,
it's an interesting take because the protagonist is some sort of famous singer or whatnot, and it starts
okay.
happening to her, which is a really interesting,
Okay.
way to go. So
Yeah. Oh, that's
hopefully
really
it'll
cool.
work.
Also,
Yeah.
she's like in the light. She's famous and she
Right.
starts in this. Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I can almost picture that audience full of.
One part of the trailer, and Smile that, you always see people smiling
Yeah.
this fucking eerie smile.
Mhm.
And in one part of the trailer, there's this little girl. She looks like she's about 11 or 12, goes up to her in a theater or some such place where there's a lot of people around, and she's just smiling at her. And she's like,
Right.
do you want to, do you want me to sign your shirt? Or what? And the little girl just doesn't answer, just keeps smiling at her. And she goes and she signs her shirt. So I'm like,
All right. Cool. Okay, I gotta watch it.
um, do you, do you find I love the fact that I have access to almost every film I could possibly want to watch,
Yeah.
in this day and age. We're living in the future. But
Mhm.
at the same time, I miss going to a video store, and rummaging around and seeing other people from the neighborhood. Oh, what are you renting this weekend? That
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do. There's something about it that I think attention span's gotten worse anyway, because I know before
Mm,
you'd go to the video store, you'd rent your whatever your two, three movies, and that's it. If you put them on, and it's like a little bit of the luck of the draw, and it's like if you're 10 minutes into it, you're not feeling it. I mean, I was never turn off of turn off
You
a
paid
film.
for it, you watch it,
I,
buddy.
I'm paid for it. I watch it. And sometimes it was like, yeah, I'm glad I did because the ending has the third act is the best thing in this, and I'm gonna go back and rewatch the rest. Now, I mean, and I just never do it, but now if I'm not feeling it, 20 minutes in, and it's only happened to me in the last year just because I've been busy and it's harder just to have that damn with. I don't have as much free time as I used to have, but I
Yeah,
find out if I'm 20 minutes in, it's not grabbing me. I'm out, which is a shame because I even look at my own films. I look at Caveat in particular, and it's quite a slow movie, and it's not really till you get to the end of that movie that you get all the good horror. It's all about that build up, and then you get to
yeah,
that release at the end. Whereas I could easily picture somebody going, "Whoa, this film's too slow for me. I'm out," and then they've missed what could have been some good scares at the end.
yeah.
So yeah, there's something about it that it's a shame it's gone in some ways.
I'm sure you're aware of the buzz around Oddity. There's a huge buzz around Long Legs.
Hmm.
I don't go to the theater often, to be honest. Um, it's more expensive for one thing, but I did go to see Long Legs. It was playing in my town, and I was very impressed with it. I
Hmm.
had one or two problems with it, but I mean, you're going to have that with just about any
Oh yeah.
movie. I thought it was the scariest movie that I'd seen this year. Certainly the creepiest.
Cool.
And then the buzz around Oddity, which I'm
Hmm.
sure you're aware, is that it's even scarier than Long Legs. Which I read that somewhere, and I'm like, oh, that's a huge compliment because I read it after I had seen Long Legs, so I
Hmm.
knew I had to go see this movie. And yeah, I would say it. When you compare movies, you're almost always comparing apples to oranges. You know,
Absolutely, yeah.
but it
Yeah.
it absolutely, I think, Oddity, in my mind, it's subjective, but in my mind, surpassed Long Legs as the scariest movie I've seen this year.
Well,
You
thank
know,
you.
a lot of dread, feeling of doom, as you
Hmm.
mentioned. The jump scares are very effective, as I said, and very earned. But it's those tense scenes that go on that I
Hmm.
thought that's the genius of Oddity. In addition to the story.
Okay.
Um, you excuse me, sorry. Um, you remind me a bit of Mike Flanagan, not in the style of filmmaking, but I think you have some really great things coming, Damian. I saw years ago Mike Flanagan's first film, at Absentia. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah.
that.
I have,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, very well done. I interviewed him about it at the time, and he said I asked him how he came up with the story, and he said, "Well, there was this creepy tunnel near where I was living at the time, and it's just so creepy that I thought I have to make a story around it. The whole thing started just because there was a creepy tunnel. What story
There
could
you
I make
go.
up about this?" And
That's
yeah,
yeah.
and you see where he is today. What's next for you? I can't help but think with all this buzz that you're going to go on to even greater things.
It's been fun, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for that. It's really nice to say. Uh, it's yeah. Well, I'm writing all the time, so I have plenty of scripts, and Oddity, it's been fantastic because it has certainly opened some doors, and I've met some really yeah, I've met some really amazing people that I've been a fan of, and I've got to talk to them. So I think all going well, we'll be filming end of this year, at the start of next year,
Called All
and
Going Well.
I,
Yeah.
I just think with films, and I think this is just across the board on every production and budget level, things happen and the films fall
Oh,
apart.
I beg your pardon. Um, I'm half
No,
deaf.
no.
Sometimes I thought the title was All Going Well. Is there
Oh,
anything you probably can't
yeah.
talk about this movie much, but is there anything you can say?
I guess I can't really say much about it, but I guess
Yeah.
it's something I've written again myself, and it kind of continues that idea of oddity in some ways of strange, a bunch of oddball characters thrown together. There's a mystery and kind of trapped together in one place. But
Yeah.
it's something I've wanted. I wrote it around the same time as Oddity, and it's really something I've wanted to make for a long time. And I'm so happy it looks like I'm going to get the chance to make it because at least on paper, it's definitely the scariest thing that I've written.
Wow.
Um, I can look at it, just feels like, and even now as we speak, like I'm just doing one last little polish on it, a few last ideas, but it's just great because every film you make, you learn so much, and you get to watch it with an audience. You get to see the feedback on it. You try not to read too many reviews, but you read them, and you can
Yeah,
kind of, but you can learn a bit from those as well. Um, but it's been great. I really feel like I can take now what I've learned from Caveat and Oddity and really put it into making something that's really, truly terrifying. I can kind of
yeah.
feel it. So I'm very excited about it.
Well, I don't know how Hollywood works, but I thought, I wonder if somebody like our current scream queen, Maika Monroe,
Mhm.
might see Oddity and think, damn, I want to be, in a future movie of his because it's so well done. There are so many horror movies with a huge budget that aren't
Yeah,
scary,
I know.
you know?
I don't think a bigger budget makes a film scarier.
No.
Um, Not at all.
Well, in the few minutes that we have left, if to the folks who are watching, uh, this is the spoiler part. So you can turn it off from here if you haven't seen it. As Damien said, it'll probably be on streaming in a couple of months. So that would be July, August, somewhere around sometime in the fall is what you're saying,
Yeah,
most likely.
possibly September. I think that's just what I say, but I guess
Yeah,
don't take my word for it.
right, right.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you guys have been warned. Here are the spoilers. All right, so here we go. Yana.
Yeah.
All right, so she's uh, I'm sorry, what's the blind sister's name? I forget. Darcy.
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 Darcy. Yeah.
So Darcy shows up and she's just like, "Well, I'm staying, screw
Yeah.
you guys. I'm staying whatever you do."
Yeah.
And so Ted goes to work
Yeah.
and Darcy's there and then these strange things start happening and I thought it was so great that after all this tension, all these jump scares, she doesn't leave because she can't find her keys. That's so valid. I mean, I can't count the number of times I've lost my keys and
Yeah.
I've had to leave half an hour later because so it's
Yeah.
very believable, and you find out that she didn't really lose them. They were taken in some way. Maybe it was the wooden man, maybe not. Maybe it was Darcy. But she gets away.
Mhm.
And I thought that is so original because she's really not Darcy's target. Because I
No.
don't think Darcy's, I don't think Yana's really done anything that's pissed Darcy off. She wasn't part of the murder or anything like that.
Mhm.
And when she can't call out on her when she has no longer has access to her cell phone is because the wooden man looks up,
Mm.
and that's frightening enough that she drops her phone. We've all done
Yeah.
that too, right?
Uh-huh.
And she drops it from the second floor and it's not usable anymore.
Yeah.
So there was no cheap, um, "Yeah, I'm not getting cell service out here, kind of thing. I loved it, man. That was very well done.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you. I think the idea was that if Darcy had killed her, and I still think it's a little bit open to debate whether she was planning to do that, because I did talk with Carolyn, who played Darcy, that maybe there is something kind of that you can be corrupted by this thing because it's powerful, or it's dark magic, and she's quite annoyed with, well, obviously she's more than annoyed with Ted, but she's here for revenge. So Yana does become the target of that, but obviously Danny's ghost scares her away. And I just sometimes think that with the fact that Danny's ghost scared her away, maybe it was because Darcy was starting to get a little bit
Mhm.
darker with what she was planning. But the idea was definitely to always let her go, because if Darcy had killed her, then you'd lose all sympathy then for Darcy. I'm like, okay, well,
Yes.
she's just a murderer now as well. But it was also just to make Yana, I mean, she wasn't, even when I was writing it, I was very careful with casting it and everything, that she could be that kind of stereotypical kind of, oh, she's the, how would you say, the kind of bitchy new girlfriend, and she,
Yeah.
all this kind of thing. She's a bit of a snob or something like this. But I think the way Caroline plays it is just very it's very real, and she's probably the most relatable person in it. I mean, she's obviously very blunt and honest with the things she says, but it absolutely made sense that she should escape.
Yeah. And she is annoyed at Ted. um, because he's leaving her out here,
Yeah.
to deal with his former
Yeah.
sister-in-law, you
Yeah.
know, and yeah, I thought it was really great that she got away.
Hmm.
That's really great writing, as you said. Um, Now that you say that, yeah, I would have lost some sympathy for Darcy.
Yeah.
Um, Want to ask you, because when Logan and I were watching it, I went over and whispered to him, I think the director is doing some flashbacks here that we're not aware of at the beginning.
Hmm.
Um, Darcy said, I killed Olin, and I'm going
Yeah.
to pay for that,
Yeah.
because he didn't actually do anything wrong.
Hmm.
But there were still scenes with Olin near that part of the movie, and maybe I'm misremembering,
Hmm.
but am I right about that? Those were flashbacks.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
There is a
As I said,
fraction.
I can't take notes in the theater, so
Yeah.
I'm relying on my 53-year-old brain.
There's a non-linear timeline to it, and I think it's one of the reasons
Right.
for that is that obviously if you'd done it all linear, then mystery would be solved. That there would you'd know everything
Right.
that's happening as the film's going along,
I mean, the
and
Darcy nonlinear and her sister's nonlinear absolutely makes sense. But
yeah.
Olin, I had to, you know, I,
Yeah, so Olin is pretty much, yeah, a lot of his scenes are really told in flashback. I think the reason for that though was just it's just a way to bring back an interesting character. I mean, he's dead, but then
yeah,
you get an extra scene with him, or you get an extra two scenes with him, and it just keeps him alive that way. And again, it just wakes up the film as well because you're spending so much time in this house with these characters. It's just nice to be able to go somewhere else and just to try to keep the film moving.
I think that sometimes flashbacks in novels and in movies can be really, really annoying, and
Mm.
they were not in Oddity. I thought they were very well done. And as you said, broke it up. We got to go back to Darcy's sister. I'm sorry, I don't know her name. Remember her name? I mean,
Danny, yeah.
Danny, right? And so yeah,
I,
losing. Go ahead.
with
Sorry.
caveat was the same. Caveat had that fractured timeline. I think I'm done with that. I'm determined, determined for the rest of my career just to move forward to almost to make a movie like Die Hard, where it's like the night begins, or Evil Dead 2. The night begins, and by the end of the night, let's see if he's still alive. That's my goal now, without fractured, complicated timelines.
Yeah, your next movie is going to be titled
A to
Evil
B.
Evil Die Hard. Die Hardest.
Yeah, there you go. It's not a bad pitch.
Evil Die
Taken over
Hard.
by
It's Bruce
taken over by
Willis's Die Hard, but he's not. It's not terrorists. It's
zombie
zombies or
terrorists.
something.
Okay, I like it. That's my work.
Um, let's see what else. I really enjoyed that Yana got away. Um, the I thought it was a great payoff at the end where Ted is very doesn't believe in the supernatural. You
Hmm.
know, he just poo-poos the whole thing. But
Yeah.
yet at the very end of the movie, he's sitting like, should I ring this bell or not? Do I really want to risk this? And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, screw it. I'll ring the bell.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I guess the idea would is that like the whole way through the film, everybody is telling Ted these stories. I saw a ghost, or I'm psychic, or this or this. And he's either gaslighting people and telling them, oh no, especially anything to do with the murder. He's like, oh no, that's not what happened at all. And then anything supernatural, he's completely dismissive of it. Any of Ivan's fears that he's going to go to hell for things that he's done, he doesn't care about that either. I just think that by the time you got to the end of the film with the character, it just made sense that all he's been hearing about all the time are other people's, you know, strange experiences, and he's kind of got to see it for himself. Or he maybe even thinks that Darcy has sent him this bell as like a plan B in case she fails with the wooden man, which she does. That that it's like a test for him. That is he going to be? Is he? It's like if he doesn't ring the bell, she wins because she's kind of proved to him, well, you do believe in this stuff and you're too
right.
scared. And whereas if he does ring the bell, then his arrogance is going to be his undoing because it actually is haunted.
Again, there's a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, yeah, I guess it starts as it ends. There you go. It's quite good.
Yeah. That's great. I did not expect Darcy to die.
Hmm.
Um, when first of all, what evil genius that was to say, when the phone rings, come over here and answer it. I'm setting it right here. And
Yeah.
then he removes the
Yeah.
square in the floor.
Hmm.
And I thought, she's not really going to do it, is she? And once again, one of the strengths of this movie, in my mind, is not just the tension, not
Hmm.
just the earned jump scares, but also things happen unexpectedly that I didn't expect. I didn't expect Yana to get away. I did not expect Darcy to actually fall through the hole and die.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
I
uh,
think it's,
yeah,
yeah, it's probably just to make sure there's never going to be a sequel to it. Just kill everybody, burn the wooden man, and there you go, it's done.
right. Uh, where did the idea for the wooden man come from? Because he's quite creepy.
Yeah. Um, I guess it's like that old idea of the golem that you can bring to life, and it'll
I
whatever.
actually said I said that to my son. I thought
Hmm.
that he reminds me of a golem.
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
um,
That's probably one of the ideas to start with, but then I guess it's such a horror. Again, that the film is full of horror tropes or things that people have maybe seen in other movies or that it's familiar. It's like a big doll essentially that's going to come to life and kill people. It's just when is it going to happen? That was always the idea. It was always like I'd love it if there was just this thing sat at the table for the whole movie, and
right,
all this other creepy stuff is happening around it. But
right.
it's always this weird centerpiece that you're just waiting for it to come to life. I just thought that it'd be kind of I always say funny. I think I always think there's a fine line between comedy and horror because
Mm.
I thought that we'll get to a point where it's just there and there'd be a little bit of nervous laughter with it eventually. Be like, well, is this guy ever going to do anything? Is he just going to sit there for the whole movie? And that's really where the
It's
idea.
almost I don't know quite how to phrase this, but it's almost like a side um, ratcheting up the suspense, building up the suspense. In other
Yeah,
words, the other thing is going on in the movie, but in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, but this creepy wooden guy is sitting there this whole time.
yeah,
In
yeah,
addition to the things that are happening in the movie.
yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I also thought I wanted to compliment you too on the use of the camera
Hmm.
when she starts to take Olin maybe a little bit seriously and
Hmm.
she goes and looks at the camera that goes off every so often, then she sees that indeed he was telling the truth,
Hmm. Yeah.
and he doesn't just pop up. She sees him in the camera,
Yeah.
which is in a lot of ways even worse because now you don't know where he is.
Yeah, that's right. Again, it's ever hard to remember. It's hard to remember sometimes where these things began, whether it was just going
Sure.
to be, I imagine with that, it was going to be that she gets into the tent and zips it closed and then hears something. And then there becomes that idea of, okay, well, if she tries to creep back out, where is he? But again, it's like the thing of letting the audience know, no, he's definitely here and he's going to attack. But the question is when, and then all of the tension is in the when. It's like,
Yeah.
well, we know it's going to happen, but when is it going to happen? And you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. And for me, that's what always makes things scary.
He's wearing some kind of mask. It doesn't look like Scream, but it's got that blank
Yeah.
Halloween type of uncanny valley thing going on.
Yeah.
What was behind the choice to have him wear that instead of just killing her? I thought the uncanny valley is just creepy in the
Yeah.
first place, right? So
Yeah.
that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, and that was my thinking too. It was like that uncanny valley of like it's emotionless and it's there's something off about it. Again, it was just you could have had him jump out and strike her and it's over. But the fact that he toys with her, the fact that he was gonna stand in front of the tent and he's picked up the hammer that she's left behind, it's just so much colder and it's creepier. And again, it's drawing it out. It's getting more tension from it. So it just became like, well, what does he look like? And I just thought that the room is so dark and everything else has been so warm. All the skin tone has been warm. You've got this lovely yellow warm lantern glow coming from the tent, the stonework and the woodwork. And then he's just got this burning white face in the middle of all of this. I thought
Yeah,
something kind of that would be quite memorable, you know?
yeah, it certainly was. Um, this this would probably become more clear to me upon repeated viewings, but it's not right now. So I have to ask, when Danny phones her sister at the beginning of the film and says we found a connection or something like that,
Yeah.
I don't know quite what she was talking about. What was she talking
Right.
about there?
So what she says to her is, "We are connected," and she's basically making because her whole all of her dialogue at the start is just the excitement of finding that there's a cell service that she's found like one or two bars or whatever up
Oh,
on this area. So the first thing she do is phone her sister to
okay,
say,
I thought she's talking about cell service, but it wasn't. Yeah,
"Yeah,
probably a
that's
dumb
exactly."
question, but I had to ask
No,
anyway.
no, no, not at all. No, no, not at all. So that's kind of the idea is that, we are connected. But then, of course, it just takes on a whole other meaning at the end when, Darcy says this, we are connected. Is like, is she recalling her sister, or is she saying that she's connected to the wooden man and we're about to go blood simple?
Yeah. Well, Damien, it's a hell of a film, and I truly believe that, you know, Caveat and especially Oddity are your low budget absentias, Mike Flanagan's, where you show the world, look, this is what I can do. And I'm sure you've got even bigger and better things headed your way. And hopefully when you're huge, big time Hollywood director, I can interview you again. So
I'd love that.
for
Well,
your next
hopefully,
films.
I appreciate that. I'm glad it was worth the drive as well for you guys.
Oh, it was, yeah.
Okay, good.
It was a lot of fun and great
Yeah,
day with my son. And the ultimate
excellent.
compliment is that the cynical 22-year-old jumped at least 3 times during the movie. So
Excellent. Then my work is done.
I told my son, I said, man, if your mom was here, she'd have been out during the movie
All
trailers, much less the film
right.
itself.
Okay.
So anyway, thanks for doing the interview. Yeah, when I first emailed you, you said, "Oh yeah, I'm familiar with your podcast. I've listened to it before." Oh
Yeah, I'm always in and out of well, I used to work in my day job used to be on a building site. It was just 6, 7 hours. I would get to work in the morning because I'd be wiring all day, just dragging
yeah,
cable. So I would just put in my headphones, and then it was just bouncing around through podcasts all the time. So yeah,
yeah. Well,
I've been
thank
in.
you for that.
Yeah,
That's nice to
yeah.
hear.
Oh,
Anyway, thanks for doing this, and I wish you all the best. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime soon.
yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, let's
All
definitely
right,
talk again. Thank you.
all right, man. Thanks a
All
lot.
right. Thanks a lot.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye
Figure out
bye.
how to stop the there we go. Stop. All right. Anyway, thanks. Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you, Damon, and we'll see you next time.